Hey, what's going on, everyone? How you doing? So normally I don't talk about mixed martial arts or sports in general. I think the last time I talked about a match in the UFC was Khabib versus Conor McGregor. I think that was the last time I talked about it. Maybe I made another one. I don't think so. But I want to talk about UFC 266 because it just really reminded me of why I think mixed martial arts is the greatest sports in the world. And I just want to share a little bit of it. I know some people asked me to kind of talk about it a little bit. So here's to the five of you that asked about this. And we'll get to the main event and everything. I just want to talk about a couple of the fights before, because the card all the way through was pretty good. You know, it's not always like a home run and stuff like that. Some stuff already happened that you expected. And that's what I want to begin with. I want to begin with what a lot of people were excited for, when a lot of people thought like the real main event was going to be Nick Diaz versus Robbie Lawler, because Nick Diaz finally came back after 6 years. If you saw Nick Diaz in the spring and summer, he looked fantastic. He put out all these photos of him. Like, he's just like kind of, oh, what's up? I'm thinking about coming back. And he looked shredded. Like, he looked like a solid actual welterweight, 170 pounds. And we were all excited, like, oh man, like Nick Diaz has always been a really exciting fighter. You know, he's always been pretty dominant, just a great boxer, amazing jiu-jitsu. So it was going to be really cool. And then Robbie Lawler is always exciting. Some of the most exciting fights throughout history has been with Robbie Lawler. And I mean, and a lot of people who didn't even know who Robbie Lawler was, they got introduced to him through Ben Askren, when he was pretty much destroying him. And then there was the kind of controversial stoppage to where it looks like he kind of went out, but he was totally fine. It was an honest mistake. I think everybody agreed that Herb Dean actually did his job well. It looked like Robbie Lawler was out, but he wasn't. It happens. But yeah, Robbie Lawler, this is going to be a good fight. After 17 years, they had their first fight, and Nick Diaz won and knocked Robbie Lawler out. It was actually really awesome. It's actually a really exciting fight. But this one, I was concerned moving forward because it was supposed to take, place at 170 pounds, supposed to be a welterweight fight. And then, I think it was 2 or 3 days before that fight itself, Nick Diaz and his camp were like, hey, can we do this at middleweight? Can we do it at 185? And some people were saying, this seems a little shady to me. It seems like maybe he doesn't want to cut weight. He wants to be just a lot bigger and then just have a really big size advantage over Lawler. Some people were kind of speculating over that. And me, I was actually more concerned because with that close to the fight, to me, it showed that I just think he's not into it. He just doesn't have the drive to want to cut to 170 pounds, which a lot of people in the sport always say that's the hardest part of the sport, is the weight cut. The discipline to cut the weight and everything. And while we're here, let's talk about that for a second, the weight cutting, because really, as Joe Rogan coins, he says it's sanctioned cheating, and it really is. Because they're not cutting a couple of pounds here and there. Just the divisions are so spread wide apart that these people, they're like, I want to gain a size advantage. Let's take Anthony Rumble Johnson, for example. Anthony Rumble Johnson now was fighting at light heavyweight from if I remember correctly. But back in the day, this dude was trying to make welterweight, 170 pounds. Think 170 pounds to 205. This dude probably walks around at 210, 220 or something. And he was trying to force his body so far down to where he can get down to 170 on the day to weigh in, and then balloon up to 200 and something pounds. And so he can destroy his competition. But he kept constantly missing weight because he's not a true welterweight. It wasn't even a middleweight. It was like, yeah, you're probably better in light heavyweight. You're probably going to do much better in light heavyweight. Anyway, so all these people are just, they're all cheating and stuff like that. And it's just a part of the process. We just accept that it's a thing. So Diaz probably walks around at 200, 210, 205, something like that. And he's just like, I don't want to cut down to 170. I was probably around 170 pounds in the summer. And then he ballooned up. And now he's like, I'm good. And then when you saw him, you looked at his body, he kind of had he wasn't so shredded anymore. So you saw the big size difference that Robbie Lawler was walking around at, say, what a welterweight normally fights at. So he was not as big as he would normally like to be for a middleweight fight. But he was more in shape and he was more driven for the fight. And also, he lost the first time. So he went out there and he just pressed the action, even though Nick Diaz was, man, his output peppering him like crazy. it still was just pepper. And then when fucking he got hit with a really good shot, you know, he was dropped and his nose was possibly broken, looked like it was broken, and then he was done. And that was the craziest thing, seeing Nick Diaz quit, because the Diaz brothers are supposed to be tough badasses, right? I mean, we all know Nate. Like, Nate ain't gonna quit. It's unfortunate that he gets cut up so many times, like that one time in New York with the BMF belt, and he was like so cut up that the commission or the doctors just stopped it and stuff, even though he's totally fine. But they're just like, oh, this is scary. So it was weird seeing him quit, but at the same time, it just kind of showed that, yeah, see the weight, the move up to middleweight, he just wasn't into it. And then his speech, I'm talking about, like, I had it coming, no excuses, you know, like I was nervous, a lot of pressure and all this stuff. I don't think he used the word nervous, but just a lot of pressure and just a lot on his mind. And you can tell that he just wasn't into it. I still enjoyed the fight. That was cool. But now, the reason that I wanted to talk about this video is because of the main event, Volkanovski versus Ortega. Or I should really say, as far as billing goes, it should be Ortega versus Volkanovski, because what it's supposed to be in billing is supposed to be the challenger versus the champion. That's why the challenger walks out first and then the champion walks out. That's kind of like how the billing's supposed to go. And sometimes people will switch things around just because of how it sounds and everything, but it's supposed to be like, put some respect on the champion's name. Challenger versus champion. Volkanovski. A lot of people have been sleeping on Volkanovski. It's weird, you know, especially with him fighting Max Holloway, and a lot of people thinking, oh, Max Holloway won, especially when they rematched. They're like, Max Holloway won this one, he got robbed. But I feel like there's a lot of people that just don't understand how things add up. And if you looked at Volkanovski, his kicks, man, his kicks were vicious. Like, people, I'm like, these kicks are strikes, people. Like, this guy is kicking the shit out of Max Holloway. Like, to me, it could have went either way. But yeah, I want everybody, even if you're just a casual fan and you only watch when the big fights go on, like the McGregors, the Adesanyas, the Masvidals, or something like that, I need you to watch Brian Ortega versus Alexander Volkanovski, because of the third round, which is one of the greatest rounds you will ever see in mixed martial arts. It is so awesome. It is so amazing. I'm still, to this day, it is a few days later, and I'm still like trying to wrap my head around how Volkanovski got out of... All right, so here's the thing. If you guys don't know, Brian Ortega's nickname is T-City. T-City stands for Triangle City because his jiu-jitsu is masterful. He finishes a lot of people with triangles. And he got Volkanovski not only in a triangle, he got him in a mounted guillotine. And Volk slipped out of both things. Now, the mounted guillotine, that was the one that was pretty much sunken so deep that even Volk himself was like, I'm done. Like, I'm going to lose my belt. He still slipped out of it. He just got, like, it was just, like, so lucky to the point where he probably got a strong neck. He kept fighting, never gave up. He didn't just, you know, submit or tap or anything, because he said he would have went out. If he was going to go out, he was going to go out. But he just kept going enough to the point where Brian probably just squeezing with all of his might, after a while, just kind of gave up a little bit because he just couldn't maintain it anymore. He was probably squeezing with everything he has, and then it let up just enough to where he got a little bit of wiggle room. So it was just like a matter of timing, everything. Like, say if that happened in the first round or something, Brian probably would have sunk it all the way, be new champion. So it's like one of those things where it's like that perfect storm of just toughness, grit, just not giving up, and then just enough in the fight to where Brian just couldn't keep it just enough where his arms just kind of worn out. So then after he slips out of that, he gets him in a triangle, and then they're like, that's it, he's in the triangle, it's T-City time. It's T-City. He slips out of that. And Volk said it himself. He's like, the triangle wasn't as tight. To us, that shit looked tight. That looked like, oh, he's done. It's T-City. He knows what he's doing. It's deep. Gets out of it. After that, Volkanovski wants revenge. He starts raining bombs on Ortega. I mean, bombs. And after the bell, sounded, it was kind of crazy because I think Brian Ortega was TKO'd at that point. I don't think he could even get up on his own. And then when the doctors were asking him stuff and questions about what can you see, this dude was just out. He was on another planet. And Volk was like, what's going on? Like, you're giving him another minute to recover. And he did. Now look, that was kind of shady, but at the same time, we got more action. Because even towards the end, like the 5th round where you think Ortega's done, no, he got a final wind, and he started putting it on Volk to the point where Volk was just like, I'm still going to stay here. We're still going to fight, but I'm just kind of maintaining. I'm not trying to knock you out anymore. I'm just going to win. But Ortega was putting it on him to the point where it's like, oh shit, man. Where did that energy come from after you've been getting just destroyed in like pretty much every round? It was such an exciting fight, and it just really makes me appreciate the sport. Like this is why I've been a fan of this sport since I was 12 years old. You know, the UFC, you know, I think a lot of people got introduced to UFC back in the days when you can go to Blockbuster, Sigma Video, or whatever your local thing, and then you had those VHS tapes. And we just watch it and be like, this sport is fucking wild. And then, of course, it got a lot better because the rules started being in place to make it more reasonable. And when you got to the eras of the Ortiz and the Liddell, you know, like that was my bread and butter. That was like, I still remember that. Like, I'm like, that was the true golden era of mixed martial arts. I mean, there was people will argue and say, nope, you're forgetting about Pride. And it's like, well, yes, but unfortunately, Pride wasn't as easily available as UFC, so I wasn't able to mark out it and Pride the way that I would like to, where I can retroactively watch Pride matches and be like, oh, that's crazy. Look at that guy getting kicked in the face. Look at that soccer kick. I don't know. Not a huge fan of the soccer kicks, man. Those are so brutal. But that being said, it is time to put respect on Volkanovski's name, man. That dude, 20 fights in a row. He's been beating the best people in his weight division. Like, a lot of people just aren't giving him the respect. A lot of people, especially that they're like, oh, you lost to Holloway. You lost to Holloway and stuff. We're like, I don't think he did. I really don't think it was just like, oh, a clear-cut robbery or anything. Like, and then when we see how he defended his belt this time, people are finally like, okay, I understand. And it's like, well, you should have understood before when you saw his fucking record. I mean, people do this all the time, though, to be honest. If you look at Adesanya's record, people weren't calling him the GOAT until like a couple years ago or something. But his record he was flawless until just losing to Jan when he moved up to light heavyweight. When you think about Khabib Nurmagomedov, he got to 29-0. No one was saying anything about him when he was undefeated into the entire time until he finally started fighting like the big cheeses. So it's kind of like the respect is not put on until the light is really shown on them, you know, and it's a casual issue. The casual fans, they're not paying attention to the fights before, so how can they respect them if they're not even watching? So I think that's kind of what it comes down to, because the people that watch all the time, they're definitely putting respect. I mean, they're following, they're watching all the fights on wherever you get, like ESPN Plus, they're watching the UFC Vegases, they're watching all the events. So congratulations to Volk, deserves it. Dude's a short king like myself, 5'6". Anyway, that's all I'm going to say. Let me know what you guys thought of the fights of the card, UFC 266. I'm here in Vegas now, so I'm definitely going to make sure I go to the next event. At least I'm going to try my best to go get some good seats and whatnot, and just have a good time. You know, try to walk the strip and see some of the fighters. And but that's it, guys. Y'all take care. Got a Twitter trash coming out very soon. Have a good day. See you next time.